The glass door of the office swung open violently, and the alarm blared throughout the lobby. Amidst the stunned gazes, Sophie, her hair disheveled and mascara streaked, screamed across the meeting room, "You can't just cut me off like nothing ever happened." I stood up, my gaze cold and my voice firm. "This is a workplace, not a stage for your drama." There were no pitying looks, no sympathetic glances, only a heavy silence as she was escorted out of the building. That day, I didn't just refuse to help Sophie again. I refused an entire life where I was disrespected, used, and erased simply because I wasn't perfect enough in the eyes of my family. What would you do when the person you love most turns you into a shadow in your own life? Today, join me on the powerful journey of Eliza, a journey of compassion, of silent wounds, and above all, of awakening. If you love authentic, moving, and inspiring stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next emotional journeys. Now, let's dive into the story. My name is Eliza. I'm 32 years old, and I live in Asheville, a small city nestled among rolling mountains. I own a company specializing in residential heating and air conditioning maintenance. The work isn't glamorous, no high-rise offices, no expensive suits, but it's something I built from scratch with my own two hands after nearly a decade of relentless hard work. I am incredibly proud of what I've achieved, even if not everyone in my family feels the same. Everything unfolded this past Thanksgiving, a day that was supposed to be filled with warmth, but instead became the moment I realized my true place in the hearts of those I once trusted the most. I had just finished a major maintenance project for a client when the sky outside began to darken. Driving home, I felt an unusual sense of peace. The company was officially closed for the holiday, all my employees had received their bonuses, and I even stopped by a famous wine shop to pick up a bottle of red to bring to the family dinner. Since my father passed away, my mother had hosted a big Thanksgiving dinner every year, and everyone always showed up. I had never missed a single year. As my car glided along the tree-lined road, my phone vibrated. Seeing Rose, my mother's name flashed on the screen, I smiled and answered, "Hi, Mom, I'm on my way. Do you want me to bring apple pie or mashed potatoes this year?" On the other end, there was a strange silence before her voice, slightly trembling, broke through. "Eliza, there's something I need to tell you. I hope you'll understand." I frowned. "What's going on, Mom?" She hesitated, then blurted out, "I think maybe you shouldn't come to dinner this year." My hand nearly slipped off the steering wheel. "What, Mom?" She rushed to explain, as if afraid I'd react too strongly. "It's nothing serious, really. It's just that Miles, Sophie's boyfriend, is bringing his parents. They're very traditional. Sophie wants everything to look more formal." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, my heart pounding. "So, you mean I can't come because I don't fit the atmosphere?" Mom sighed. "It's not like that. You'll always be family. But Sophie thinks your career might send the wrong impression." I let out a bitter laugh, feeling a surge of bitterness rise in my chest. Because I'm a repair technician and not a Harvard graduate? Mom's voice turned into that familiar gentle tone, the kind she used whenever she was about to hurt me, but still hoped I would accept it. "Please don't make things more difficult." I swallowed the lump forming in my throat and asked quietly, "Do you remember who paid for Sophie's tuition? 4 years in Boston, semester after semester, never missing a payment. I gave her the future I never had." There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Mom said weakly, "It's just one night, Eliza. We can get together another time, maybe have breakfast." I said nothing more. I just quietly hung up. I didn't cry. I just sat there, frozen behind the wheel, feeling as if someone had taken a piece of me without my realizing it. About an hour later, as I sat in my small apartment, my phone vibrated. A message from my cousin Camille. "I thought you should know. Sophie just told Mom that she's embarrassed by you. She doesn't want her boyfriend's family to know there's someone in the family who works with their hands. I stared at the message, gripping my phone so tightly that fingerprints were left on the screen. Sophie, the little sister who once clung to me at 18, sobbing when I gifted her her first laptop. The one I trudged across 3 snowy blocks for, just to deliver rent money on time. Now, she was ashamed to have a sister like me. I knew very clearly, tonight, while everyone gathered around the table, raising glasses in celebration, laughing and chatting away, no one would mention me. No one would leave an empty chair for me. In fact, no one would even remember that I was supposed to be there, because in their eyes, I had never truly existed. The next morning, the soft winter sunlight filtered through the kitchen window as if nothing had happened the night before. I sat silently, cradling a cold cup of coffee, my phone lying still on the wooden table. By now, I should have been baking pies, picking out a dress, brushing my hair in preparation for a warm evening with family, just like every previous year. But this year, only emptiness surrounded me. Scrolling aimlessly through social media, I suddenly felt like someone had punched me straight in the chest. A photo appeared. Sophie stood in Mom's living room, radiant in a red dress, hand in hand with Miles. Behind them, the table overflowed with fresh flowers, flickering candles. Everything perfect, picture perfect. The caption read, "A warm Thanksgiving with the most important people." Not a single word about me, not a single question about my absence. I was still gripping the coffee mug when my phone buzzed again. Another message from Camille. "You should probably know this, even though it hurts. Sophie told everyone that if you showed up, people would think we lived in a garage." I went numb. I reread the message over and over, hoping I'd misunderstood, hoping it was just a cruel joke. But I knew Camille wouldn't lie, and deep down, I knew it was exactly the kind of thing Sophie would say, because it wasn't the first time she'd been embarrassed by me showing up in my technician's uniform, in the polished world she desperately wanted to be part of. I remembered once, back when she was in her sophomore year, I'd visit her dorm after finishing a repair job nearby. My uniform was still dusty, sweat beading on my forehead. At the sight of me, Sophie quickly pulled me into a corner of the hallway and whispered, "Could you change your shirt? Everyone here's in law school. You look out of place." I let it slide. I always let it slide. I told myself she was young, immature, that one day she would realize that a person's worth wasn't determined by a crisp collar or a prestigious title. But I had been wrong, so wrong from the start. I was the one who paid every cent of Sophie's tuition at Ridgewell University in Boston, over $18,000 a semester. I worked overtime, sacrificed holidays, turned down rare vacation days, just so she would never have to worry about tuition, books, or rent. I never asked for a thank you, no Christmas card. I simply believed that if I could give Sophie a better future, at least I would earn a place in the family. But to Sophie, I wasn't someone to introduce proudly. I wasn't someone to be proud of. I folded my phone closed, my heart pounding wildly. Anger, humiliation, pain, disappointment, all swirling inside me like a storm without an escape. I stepped out onto the balcony, watching the rush of traffic beneath Asheville's gray sky, and I understood. What hurt wasn't being excluded from dinner. It was being erased from the life of someone I had loved with all my heart. At that moment, I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. Forever the one who was overlooked, forever clinging to one-sided relationships. I turned back inside, opened my laptop, and pulled up the file named Sophie's tuition. On the screen, it read, "Next payment due in 14 days, $18,940. I moved the cursor to the Remove Payment Method button. A warning popped up. "Are you sure you want to delete this payment method? This action cannot be undone." Without hesitation, I clicked Confirm. The soft click echoed in the silent room, but inside me, it sounded like the slam of a door that had long needed closing. The next morning, right at 7 a.m., I was already seated at my desk, a steaming cup of tea by my side. My computer screen greeted me with the familiar words, "Welcome back, Eliza C." The tuition balance notification was still there, $18,640 due, with 14 days left to pay. Many times before, I had seen that screen and sighed, automatically reaching for my wallet to pay. But this time, my hands didn't tremble and my heart didn't sink. I decisively clicked the Remove Payment Method button. A small ping sounded, and that was it. Not even 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing nonstop. The first call was from Rose. Before I could even answer, another call came in, from Sophie. I let all of them go straight to voicemail. I knew they wouldn't give up. I silently switched my phone to silent mode and refocused on my work. By noon, while inspecting the HVAC system at Dover and Keene law offices, my phone lit up again. 8 missed calls, 14 unread messages. I knew I should ignore them, but one message from Sophie made me pause. "What did you just do?" "The school said the tuition payment is missing. The account disappeared. Call me now." Then another message from Mom. "Eliza, you can't be this cruel to your sister. She only has you." I stood frozen in the reception area, the clipboard cold in my hands. A chill ran down my spine, not from the air conditioning, but from the truth I could no longer avoid. In Mom's eyes, I was never a daughter to be loved. I was just a walking wallet, the only thing keeping her youngest daughter afloat. That afternoon, while driving home, the 13th call from Mom rang again. I sighed, and this time decided to pick up. Mom's voice was full of worry and urgency. "Eliza, you can't just leave her like that. Do you know how panicked Sophie is?" I kept a steady grip on the steering wheel, my voice calm. "I know, and I think she needs to panic." Mom choked up, then hurriedly said, "Do you realize she's in her final year? What if she gets suspended?" I let out a short laugh. "Mom, Sophie is old enough to be responsible for her own actions. She's not a child anymore." There was a moment of hesitation. Then Mom slipped into her usual tone, sweet, laced with guilt. "You promised to help her graduate, Eliza." I stayed silent for a beat before responding. "I promised to help my sister, but the person you're protecting today doesn't see me as family. I have no obligation to continue funding ingratitude." Silence on the other end. And as always, Mom's voice softened, thick with pity. "You're the only one in the family who can save her. Are you really going to turn your back on us?" I bit my lower lip lightly, eyes fixed on the endless road ahead. Family isn't people who only remember you when they need money. Family doesn't shut you out because of your profession. "I'm not an endless ATM, Mom." A heavy sigh came through the phone. Then she said the familiar words, "You've changed." I smiled bitterly. "It's not that I've changed, Mom. It's that for the first time, I'm living true to myself." And I ended the call. That night, I lay on my bed, staring blankly at the white ceiling, letting the silence wrap around me. No more relentless calls, no more pleading messages, no more repeated accusations. Only me and complete peace. My phone buzzed with a soft chime. A new message appeared. It was Sophie. "Eliza, I can't believe you did this to me. I've lost everything. I hope you're happy with your decision." I stared at the words for a long time, not replying. Because if Sophie truly believed I destroyed her life with a single click, then she never really understood that she had started destroying everything long before. 3 days after that final call with Camille, my phone was completely silent. No calls from Rose, no texts from distant relatives, no messages from anyone at all. And if it had been a year ago, I might have cried because of the loneliness. But now, that silence felt like a precious gift. No more expectations, no more resentment, no more struggling to be the sacrificial child. While I was reviewing technical documents in my office, my phone rang. It was Camille. Her voice was lowered, urgent. Have you heard the news? What news? I asked, though a bad feeling was already rising inside me. Sophie. She showed up at Noah's house this morning. I frowned. Noah? Sophie's boyfriend? No, now he's her ex-boyfriend, Camille answered, her voice dropping. I shot up from my chair. What? Camille sighed heavily. Miles broke up with her. He packed all his stuff and left their apartment this morning. People saw Sophie sitting and crying in front of Noah's house for nearly an hour. I fell silent. For the first time in weeks, I was genuinely surprised. Do you know why? Camille continued. Miles told his parents that for 2 years, Sophie had been lying. She told them that her family was paying for her Ridgewell University tuition, but in truth, it was you. When Miles found out, he was completely stunned. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Not from satisfaction, not from revenge, but because, for the first time, I realized Sophie didn't just erase me from her life. She built an entire world where I had never existed, just to fit the image she wanted to present. I asked, how long had she been lying to Miles? About 2 years, Camille said hesitantly. Miles said he felt like he had been dragged into a long play where the main character never truly existed. That afternoon, I received an email from Ridgewell University's Student Financial Services. Notification: Sophie Carter's tuition payment method has been canceled. The financial balance remains unresolved. Please update payment by January 10th to avoid suspension. I skimmed it briefly. I didn't forward it to Rose, nor did I call Sophie. I simply closed my laptop. But just as I predicted, Sophie sought out Miles. That evening, they met at a familiar cafe in the Hillside district. I wasn't there, but Camille knew one of the staff members, and news traveled fast. Miles arrived early, Camille recounted. Sophie showed up 15 minutes late, wearing a silk dress, perfectly made up as if trying to salvage her perfect image. I closed my eyes, easily picturing the scene. Miles didn't let her dodge around, Camille continued. He asked her straight out, "Why did you never tell the truth about Eliza?" Camille's voice softened. Sophie bowed her head, twisting her hands under the table, and muttered that she was afraid of being judged, that her family situation was complicated, and she just wanted to maintain a good image in front of Miles's parents. I wasn't surprised. That was always Sophie's way. Deflect, blame circumstances, play the innocent, but this time, Miles didn't accept it. Camille recounted, her voice tinged with sadness. Miles said, "If you're old enough to build a future, you should also be old enough to be grateful to the person who gave you that future." I felt my throat tighten, not out of pain for Sophie, but because, finally, someone else had spoken the words I had kept buried for so long. Miles added, "If today you can be ashamed of your sister, then tomorrow you can be ashamed of me too." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. At this point, Sophie hadn't just lost her tuition support. She had also lost the man she once hoped to build a life with. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part was that Sophie still didn't understand why everything had fallen apart. 3 days after Camille's final call, I received a second email from Ridgewell University. Final notice. If tuition is not paid by January 10th, student Sophie Carter will be expelled for the spring semester. I read it 3 times and felt nothing, because I had given Sophie more chances than anyone ever had. And in return, she had turned me into something to be hidden behind luxurious silk curtains. That night, Sophie called me 6 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Messages flooded in. I know I was wrong. I was just scared of being judged. "You can't just abandon me. I'll lose everything. Don't you love me anymore? Were all those years together fake? If I get expelled, my life will be over." I set my phone down quietly. I was too familiar with Sophie's emotional storms. But this time, I had learned. Compassion should not be a free pass for others to trample over you. After the 10th call, I silently blocked her number. 2 days later, She tried calling from another number. When I blocked that too, the messages started pouring in. Email, Instagram, even LinkedIn. The final message from her was brief. If you don't respond, I'll come find you. And true to her word, Sophie did something no one thought she would dare. On Monday morning, while I was in a meeting with my technical team about a new maintenance contract for a coastal hotel chain, the glass door of my office slammed open so hard that the security alarm blared loudly. I looked up. Sophie stood there, hair tangled, mascara smudged from tears, her high heels caked in mud. "I need to talk to my sister," she screamed, freezing everyone in the room. I stood up, my gaze icy. "This is a workplace, Sophie. You have no right to come here and cause a scene, disrupting my work." Sophie struggled, her voice breaking in despair. "You can't just cut me off like nothing ever happened." Before I could respond, the security team quickly approached, their voices firm. "Ma'am, please leave the building." "Don't touch me," Sophie shrieked, her eyes wild. "I'm the sister of the one who runs this place." I walked toward her, my voice calm but resolute. "You're the sister of the manager here, not the owner. And you don't have the right to disrupt my work just because you don't want to face the consequences of your actions." "You're abandoning me," Sophie shouted one last time. But this time, no one turned to look. No pitying glances, no nods of sympathy. Only the heavy sound of her heels clattering against the floor as she was escorted out. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Rose's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated for a moment, then picked up. Mom's voice was full of fury. "Eliza, what happened this morning?" Sophie called me, crying that she was humiliated in front of everyone at your office. I took a sip of water before calmly replying, "I know." And I think she needed to experience that, to learn how to take responsibility. Mom choked back a sob, then pleaded, "Do you know what will happen if she gets expelled?" I straightened up, my voice steady. "I know, but everyone has to learn to face the consequences of their actions, Mom." Her voice turned cold. "Family doesn't abandon each other like that." I set my glass down and responded without a trace of hesitation. I used to be family, but in Sophie's eyes, I was nothing more than a tool. The moment I stopped paying, I stopped existing in this family. "Eliza, I'm begging you," Mom sobbed. I cut her off, still calm. I didn't work myself to the bone for 10 years just to be seen as a burden or an embarrassment. Maybe it's time you called a bank, Mom, or learned how to say no, like I had to learn. And with that, I ended the call. The next day, Aunt Susan called me, then Uncle David. Even an old high school friend I had almost forgotten texted to check in. All of them had the same underlying message. "Eliza, is it true your sister is about to be expelled? People are saying you're being heartless." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time in my life, I was certain of my choice. I was no longer a walking wallet. And I had finally understood one truth. Love cannot exist where only exploitation lives. In the following weeks, I braced myself for an endless battle with the family. And just as I predicted, the attacks came. Late-night messages, relentless calls, accusations, all revolving around the word family. "She's still your sister. You're so cold-hearted. You've changed. You don't care about the family anymore." A year ago, those words might have shattered me into tears. But now, I simply set my phone down, looking out at the swaying pines in the cold year-end wind. I had stopped justifying, stopped apologizing, stopped trying to explain. One morning in mid-December, while I was reviewing the ventilation system designs for a new shopping mall project, Camille texted me, "Just saw your mom at the supermarket." I put down my pen. She texted again, "Sophie dropped out. She's moved back home." They looked really worn out. I stayed silent for a long time, my eyes fixed on the message. Camille added, "Your mom still says it's all your fault." I wasn't surprised. In my family, blame had always been a familiar game, and I had always been the one expected to carry it all. Sophie didn't fail because she couldn't face reality. She failed because I had stopped protecting her with blind sacrifice. Instead of feeling sad, I felt lighter. While they were still trapped in cycles of blame and denial, I had already begun writing a new chapter. With the money I used to pour into Sophie's tuition, I expanded my company. I hired 2 certified technicians, invested in new CO2 monitors, and renovated the office into a clean, modern, minimalist style. I also secured a 3-year maintenance contract with a popular cafe chain in the Maple Grove district, a deal worth 6 figures. Now, I work not out of fear of lacking, but out of love for what I built with my own hands. No one asked me anymore, "When will you get a proper job?" No one sighed in disappointment when I said I ran a technical team. And most importantly, no one made me feel invisible anymore. On Christmas Eve, I sat alone on my sofa, wrapped in a forest green sweater, my body tired after a long, busy day. Outside the window, the neighbors' lights twinkled, and somewhere far away, church bells chimed. I poured myself a glass of white wine, turned on a light-hearted comedy, and felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. My phone suddenly lit up. A message from Rose. "Eliza, Christmas isn't the same without you. Everyone misses you. Call me back, okay?" I sat still, my eyes fixed on the screen. Maybe it was just a few seconds, or maybe an entire lifetime condensed into that moment. I thought about all the Christmases past, how I was always the one who brought home the little tree, carefully wrapped every gift, silently paid for the feast with money I could have spent taking care of myself. But no matter what I did, I was never good enough in their eyes. I took a deep breath and quietly deleted the message. Not because I no longer missed them, not because I had never loved my family, but because for the first time, I had learned to love myself more than those who never truly valued me. I no longer expected Sophie to change. I no longer waited for Rose to apologize. I simply hoped that from now on, I could live a life where I didn't need anyone's permission to exist. A few weeks after Christmas, as Asheville welcomed the first cold rain of the new year, I received a handwritten letter from someone I least expected. It was from my grandmother, Evelyn Carter. She had distanced herself from the family years ago. After my grandfather passed, she moved to live alone in the suburbs of Salem, about a 3-hour drive from where I lived. I only visited her occasionally during the holidays, but she had always been the one person in the family who never judged me for my job or my lifestyle. The only thing she ever asked of me was a smile and the calloused hands of someone who had built their future with her own efforts. Her letter was neatly written, her handwriting slanted gently, as soft as her voice. "Dearest Eliza, I don't know exactly what has happened recently in the family, but I do know one thing. When a woman is brave enough to set boundaries for herself, many people will feel uncomfortable. Don't let that stop you. Who among them has ever sacrificed for you the way you have for them? I'm proud of you, not for the money you earn or the contracts you sign, but because you've learned how to protect your heart." I read her letter 3 times. Amid all the accusations and guilt, she was the only one who truly saw me without needing any explanations. Maybe she was the first person who made me believe that choosing yourself isn't betrayal. I once believed that if I gave enough, my family would love me, accept me, and be proud of me, but I was wrong. No one is obligated to love you if all they've ever learned is how to take advantage of you. And you are not responsible for sacrificing yourself just because you share the same blood. I had lived too long as if my worth could be measured by the money I spent. Every tuition payment, every expensive birthday gift, every holiday I canceled to pick up extra shifts. I thought that was love, but the truth is, love doesn't ask you to hide who you are. It doesn't require you to feel ashamed of the job that sustains you. It doesn't demand that you shrink so others can shine. If someone needs you to do that, it isn't love, it's control, disguised as family. Now, I no longer feel guilty when I don't answer Rose's texts. I no longer ache when distant relatives call me cold or harsh. I no longer dream of Sophie showing up at my door, crying and apologizing. I don't need that anymore. I have learned to hold my ground amid the storm of opinions. I have learned to stand tall and say clearly, I was not born to be the background of someone else's story. If you are also in a situation like mine, where you keep giving and giving, only to receive silence, judgment, or indifference, remember this: setting boundaries for yourself is not selfish. It is an act of courage. Choosing dignity over staying in chaos doesn't make you a bad person. On the contrary, it proves you have grown. You have recognized your own worth. I don't know if Sophie will ever learn that lesson. I'm not sure if Rose will ever stop trying to shift blame onto others. But I know one thing for sure. I will never go back to being the silent woman who paid every bill without having a seat at the table. Never again will I be the perfect figure on paper, yet still seen as an embarrassment through the eyes of my family. I have chosen myself, not out of revenge, but to truly live. There are goodbyes in life that require no tears, no accusations, only a single decisive moment to preserve your self-respect. Eliza didn't choose revenge. She chose something even stronger. She chose to live true to her own worth, even if it meant facing loneliness, misunderstanding, and heavy accusations, because real love never asks you to hide who you are. And true family, if it truly loves you, would never make you feel like a burden to be hidden away. If today you are standing at a crossroads, unsure whether to keep enduring or dare to step out for yourself, remember this: choosing yourself is not selfish. It is the greatest act of kindness you can give to yourself. If this story has touched your heart, please like and share the video to spread this powerful message, and subscribe to the channel to join us on future journeys filled with emotional, authentic, and inspiring stories. See you in the next video.